It is a sunny July Sunday afternoon, and this is a relatively quick tour of our gardens. There are four main gardens. This is the first one. This is the first one that we built or created when we moved here. You'll see Suzanne's beautiful entrance. And the first thing you'll notice about our gardens is that they are built for both production but also beauty. Trying to make sure that things look good, not just function well. So when you come into that entrance there, you'll see lavender plants that welcome you. We've got fennel over there, and these are our tomato trellises. We move those around every year just to avoid different diseases and soil depletion. And we use the trellises just, you'll see here that the tomatoes climb up the string, which gets them up and off the ground, makes them easier to pick, avoids diseases and various things like that. We have our parsley and some Swiss chard. The other thing you'll notice about the garden is that there's not just one section of one thing. Things are dispersed all throughout, and there's a bit of a intention to that, to avoid if diseases or pests come into one area, we don't lose an entire crop. It just mitigates some of those risks. So see over here, that big huge thing is an asparagus. We just didn't use it this year, and you can see that it really overgrew. And got our squash, some rhubarb just peeking behind there. This here is sorrel, one of my favorites from the garden. It's a leafy green, but it tastes sour like a lemon. It tastes great. You see over here on the tomato trellises some of Suzanne's most recent experiments. I forget what they're called, but they actually turn slightly more red than that, but these are nearly ripe here when they're black. They're kind of a neat tomato. And we have our other kind of standard sandwich tomatoes, and we often use those to make sauces and, well, definitely eat on a sandwich. So you see over there our Brussels sprouts, which are coming up. And over on this side here too, you'll see Suzanne covers a lot of the leafy, those are cabbage in there. Not sure if you can see it through the camera, to avoid mainly pest control, so that there's a certain type of moth that will come in and lay its eggs, and then the caterpillars eat the leaves, and you lose an entire cabbage pretty quickly. This is this at the end of the garden here. You'll see our raspberries. We got a great harvest this year. They're right at the tail edge of being done. Suzanne actually just picked them, so that you don't see a lot red. But we've had that since we moved in, I think, and they've grown out really well and turned into a pretty good harvest. So you see here more squash, or no, these are zucchini, tomatoes, more of the Romas and San Lorenzos. And like I said before, you'll always notice with Suzanne's gardens that there's flowers everywhere. That's for pollination, but it's also just to look at. On this side here, you've got your thyme and some more San Lorenzos, or maybe Romas, I'm not sure, and zucchinis. Now we're going to start moving over here. This is our garden shed where all the things happen, and dog pool, kiddie pool for the dogs. So go back here and you'll see, we'll call it garden number 2. This is the second one that we actually put in before the ones that we just walked through, or the one that we walked through. That's Suzanne's soil pile. We take compost, which I'll show you in a second, and then it sits here for a season to turn into good nutritious soil. These are a strawberry patch here. Suzanne just split it. It was one massive lump, and it was hard to pick. And this year was a terrible strawberry crop just because of all the water. They got juicy and then they rotted. On the end here we have currant, and halfway up are blueberries. We don't have the right acidity in the soil to make them thrive, but we always get a handful every year. And then you get into onion station, tons and tons of onions, and there's more. You'll see those in a bit. Lots of onions. Again, Suzanne with her artistry, with the flowers and the entrance here. And we've got grapes there. They're a specific, I think they're a Concord actually. We struggled with them last year, so we didn't have them, but this year it looks like it's doing quite well, although I can see right now some grapes on the ground that we'll have to remedy. Got our bush beans and onions. And under here is more cauliflower, which we've already pulled a few off this year. Again, we're about mid-July, July 21st right now, which is a bit earlier than we normally have. This here is elderberry, elderflower. We actually gave this bush here, trimmed off all the early flowers. So this over here is an early elderflower. You see all the white, and then it'll drop its petals and it'll turn into berries, which are kind of what you see happening over here. And then those turn purple, and that's, you make elderberry pie really, and jam. But what we did this year is we took all the initial leaves, or excuse me, flowers off of this, and gave them to a friend who runs a cidery. It's like apple cider, hard cider, and he infused and made an elderflower cider, which was really good. It was quite popular, or currently, it was about 2 weeks ago he released that. This is the compost. So that was what I mentioned earlier. We compost all of our household waste into here, obviously organic waste, and then it decomposes and goes into that pile in the back. And our leaf harvest every year, this is actually quite depleted, but that helps the composting process a great deal. So we're kind of transitioning here. You were just going from garden 2. These are our cherry bushes, which first time we've ever got a really good harvest off of them this year. I made some tarts, and I think there's a bunch frozen as well. Over here we have garden number 3. So you'll see the teepee bean stands with the string for the beans to climb up. You're going to see again Suzanne's artistry with the dahlias around the entire edge of the garden. And that massive lump of green is pumpkin. I think that's traditional pumpkin. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's pie pumpkins, but I think they're just standard pumpkins, like the ones you'd cut open for a jack-o'-lantern, but I could be wrong with that. On the back, you'll see corn. We've often struggled with corn for 2 reasons. Number 1 is wind. You'll see here, hopefully, you can't see it very well. We're on the edge of a ravine, and we get major winds that come across this area here, and the wind will take down corn overnight really quickly. That happened to us last year. And then the other thing is raccoons. They know exactly when the corn is perfect, and they know the day before we do, and they come and grab it. So we'll see. This is looking good this year, but the raccoon risk is still pretty high. More onions. Onions. And then over here we have it's a bit of an experiment this year, going up the teepee with squash. I think it's a special type of, I want to say Japanese squash. Suzanne would be able to inform better on that, but it makes for smaller ones that can actually take that load. So it's an experiment. Here we have our cucumbers, which usually thrive, but this year they've been struggling a little bit, but we got lots more season to go. We've already got quite a few cucumbers that we've been eating in our dinners, our salads, and our sandwiches. And then back there you'll see lemon cucumber, which doesn't taste as lemony, or is not yellow and round. There's a slight little flavor of lemon to it, but it's really just a cucumber. At least that's what last year's were. Who knows? Different soil, different year. That is what it is. So you can see way back there, that was the garden shed that we were at. Garden number 2 is up there, and then compost, and we got garden number 3. And then we're going to take a journey over here to garden number 4, which was the last garden that we put in. This used to be all just meadow. Before we moved in, it was all farm machinery, and this was more like a storage yard for anything. But we moved in, and we've been intentional about really, I will say revitalizing, but really helping the meadows grow. We really enjoy especially in the fall, the colors that come out of it, and just the biodiversity. We see monarchs that are floating around. We see just a ton of different animals, both good and bad, because we have that meadow here, and it's just nice to look at as well. So this is garden number 4. Again, Suzanne with her entrances. These I believe are irises, but I could be wrong. Or buds maybe? I'm not sure. Actually we'll go right here. A project this year was setting up this fence line across the back. It serves a couple of different purposes. So when I say fence line, I'm talking about these logs. There's a lot. We had old firewood that we didn't, that couldn't be burned in the wood stove. So we chopped it all up and turned it into a fence line. This was Suzanne's vision. She saw it on a show, or she maybe saw it in the background in something and said, oh, we should do that. So it kind of weaves and snakes its way down and all the way across over to there. And its 2 purposes are as a wind block. So in the early spring, this meadow is non-existent. So keeping the wind off, as well as a bit of a weed barrier. You'll see that the weeds still win, but without that, and last year we didn't have it, the weeds did overtake us quite a bit. Just kind of going back here, we've got our cauliflowers, or no, excuse me, that's broccoli, eggplants, cabbage, which is they're getting ahead of us this year. They're doing really well. The cabbage is, for some reason, she got an earlier crop one, and they've been doing exceptionally well, both the green and the red cabbage. And then over here we have our Brussels sprouts, and another experiment Suzanne this year. We've always struggled with getting them. They always grow well, but they don't produce the sprouts. But this year they're doing, hopefully, knock on wood, they're going to do what they need to. The experiment was stacking them a lot closer together. Suzanne had identified that that's how most major producers and farmers do it. And so she just shifted around, and they're looking a lot better than they had been in the past. So we're optimistic that that's going to turn out well. We've got our nice hydrangeas. You do not eat those, but they make a nice border and they look nice. And then we have our bush beans. What are these? This is watermelon up in the corner. Hopefully we've never had one tiny watermelon. We've always struggled with the length of season and the heat. However, this year is looking pretty good. And then here we have, I believe, decorative pumpkins. Nope, some type of melon based on the label there. And these are the decorative pumpkins, I think. Don't hold me to it. Up the middle, you're going to see more of the Roma and San Lorenzo. These are important to us. We make pizza sauce. We make, Suzanne makes pizza sauce, pasta sauce, just based tomato, lots of salsa, which is fantastic. So the tomato crop is important to us. Last year we really struggled because of blight, I think it was, and just growth. Or no, maybe the year before was blight and then last year was growth. But tomatoes are important. Knock on wood, this year is supposed to is looking quite well. Garlic, so these were planted last season. They came up this year. Scapes have been cut off. Now they're starting to dry out. I'm not sure the timing, probably in another 2 or 3 weeks once those are fully dried out. We'll pull them, and we don't weave them together but hang them so they can really dry out well. And then that becomes our garlic for the year. It all goes well with the onions, which we have millions of, as you know. You'll see a few of our friendly potatoes peeking up through there. Those were not planted, those are from last year, which means we just didn't harvest them. They come up. Potatoes will grow anywhere, anyhow, as much as they can. One thing you will notice about the gardens is that we use a chip covering. That's a few different reasons. One is to retain moisture. So if it's a dry season, we found that the chips hold the water in, and then also weed suppression. So it's really good for doing that. That said, we have also noticed that it creates a high acidity in the soil. So over time, it does make it harder to amend and control the nutrients that are in the soil. So again, this is all still garden number 4. Up the middle, we have, I'm not sure if you can guess, but that is loofah. So just like the loofah sponges or loofah sponges that you would see, they grow kind of almost like a zucchini, except they have that loofah fabric on the inside. They're a crawler. You can see this down here that they're shooting all over the place. We have to train them to go up and around so that then they hang. Last year we got maybe 3 loofahs, and then you have to dry them out. I think we never had a full proper sponge, but we also had another late season and it didn't quite work out. More Swiss chard just kind of floating around. And this is our celery aisle. We didn't, the first, maybe it was a few years in, Suzanne started to plant the celery, and it was fantastic. We didn't realize celery was as easy to grow as it is, or that we could even grow it here, and it's a crop that's useful. Although that said, that's a lot of celery. So what we can often do is chop it up, freeze it, and then you can throw it into chilies or soups or different things throughout the year for a bit more of that fresh. And then on this side you have the pepper alley. Lots and lots of peppers, different types. We got the greens and the reds, the hots and the colds. A lot of different peppers there. And then the standard carrots. And the marigolds, which are really important for pest control. Those are a deterrent for some pests. Although we've had a lot of trouble growing marigolds this year just based on some seeds and some different things. And then lettuce corner. Let's see lettuce corner here. And that is the end of garden number 4. Although this is lavage, which we've never seen. This was moved, transplanted from another spot, and it's 6 foot plus. We did not expect it to grow to that size. It's been recently trimmed even, and you can see how it's hollow, which is kind of cool. Lavage is like a celery, a celeriac type taste, and apparently you can use the leaves and different things. It was here as a decoration and just moved here. Suzanne moved it over here just to kind of bring some more life to it, and it certainly worked. So yeah, now we're back at the shed. That was garden number 4. Garden number 2 right here. Garden number 3 all the way back there past the elderberries, or elderflowers. And then over here, garden number 1. And that's the entirety. Other than if you go a little bit further past garden 1, and we inherited this when we purchased the place. It wasn't by our design, and we do have intentions to plant new trees, but this is a small orchard. This first tree is not a fruit-bearing one. This is a Kentucky coffee tree, we think. It's really good at just dropping its limbs. Over here we have a pear tree, which has delicious pears. We haven't got a lot of them in the past, although this year, again, looking good. This is all the hard work that Suzanne's been doing paying off. She's been trimming and over many years, just trying to revitalize some of this stuff. A plum, I quite like these. They're really good plums. Up here we have a we don't know tree. We're not sure what it does. It's never borne fruit, and we don't know what it is, although it's looked like it was trying to, and then it kind of drops everything. But our guess would be it's a plum variant, maybe peach, maybe apricot, who knows. But it doesn't give us anything, but we're optimistic. And then over here we have all these are all apple trees. Some are good. I think we have Spy and Cortland maybe, but some really good apple trees are for pies and eating. And then we have our pear tree, which has always given us good fruit. We take the bottom and the raccoons take the top. That's usually how it works out. Oh, and then one more thing here, you can kind of see that yellowy tree in the background there. That is a mulberry tree, and that gives us like an amazingly abundant harvest every single year. Every year we go, oh, this is a bumper crop, and the next year it just gives us more. When we first moved in, it actually split in 2, so this is only half the tree that it was. I know for 1 year, Suzanne and I, it takes 2 of us. It's a lot of work. Pulled close to 100 quarts, pints off of that. I'm not sure quarts or pints, but either way, high volume of mulberries, where you put down tarps and then you shake the tree and then pick them all up. It's labor intensive, but one thing that we like is that the neighbors love it. So we put them at the road, tell the neighbors, come pick them up. They do. If you're not a neighbor, then you got to pay $4, but everybody loves them. And we freeze those. They make an amazing pie if you match it with vanilla ice cream. Hard to beat that. So that is the gardens. I'm looking back now, the shed and garden number 1, a little bit of the orchard, and Thatcher there. And I'll leave it at that. That's our garden.